I wasn't scared of babysitting. I'd done it plenty of times. Suburbs, late-night pizza money, quiet kids glued to screens. Easy. But the moment I pulled up to this house, something felt off. Not haunted. Not dangerous. Just wrong. Like the street didn't want me there. Like the shadows held their breath. The house was perfect, too perfect. Trimmed hedges, gleaming windows, a porch without a speck of dust. No toys. No bikes. No signs a child lived there at all. The mother opened the door before I knocked. She was already smiling. That kind of rehearsed smile, wide and empty, like a hostess greeting someone she doesn't recognize. She said almost nothing. Just handed me a printed list and pointed me inside. The father stood in the hallway behind her, silent. He didn't even look at me, just down the hall like he was listening for something. Julian, their son, was already in bed. I didn't see him. The mother said he'd had a long day, and the last babysitter made things worse by checking in too much. I should have walked away then, but I was tired. Rent was due, and something about the way she shut the door behind me made it feel final. The list she gave me was full of rules. Don't turn off any lights. Don't open the fridge. Don't use the upstairs bathroom. Don't enter the room at the end of the hall. Julian cries, just wait. I read it twice. There was a line at the bottom, scribbled in pen, sloppier than the rest. Like someone added it in a hurry. Don't trust the parents. I stared at that last line for a long time. It didn't match the rest. Different handwriting. Was it a joke? Left over from another sitter? I walked the house slowly. Everything was spotless, cold, lifeless. Like it had been cleaned too many times. Like no one actually lived here. The hallway was lined with photos. But all the frames were generic, stock image smiles, families I didn't recognize. Not even Julian. The room at the end of the hall, the one I wasn't supposed to enter, didn't have a doorknob. Just a smooth white surface, freshly painted. But the floor in front of it was scuffed, scratched, like someone had kicked it, or tried to claw their way out. I told myself to stop being dramatic, that it was just an old house with weird parents. I sat on the couch and turned on the baby monitor they'd left. It was built into the wall, not a handheld screen, but a large, grainy black and white feed like a security system. Julian was asleep. At least I thought he was. He lay still on the bed, face turned to the wall. Camera was fixed in a ceiling corner. No sound, no movement, just the steady glow of static around him. I watched it for a while. Maybe too long. At some point, I noticed something strange. There were no toys in the room. No posters. No nightlight. And the walls, they weren't just bare. They were padded. I turned off the monitor and stood. The hallway looked longer than before. I checked the front door. Still locked. No noise from outside. No traffic. No wind. The silence had a weight to it, like the walls were listening. Then I heard a sound. Soft. Repeating. A child's voice. It wasn't coming from the monitor. It was coming from the hallway. It took me a few seconds to realize I was holding my breath. The voice was soft, rhythmic. Not quite a whisper, not loud enough to understand. But it was definitely coming from the hallway. From behind that smooth, knobless door. I stepped forward slowly. The monitor was still on in the living room. Julian hadn't moved. Still curled toward the wall. Still breathing. Still alone. But the voice kept going. Sounded like a child repeating a sentence over and over, but the words blurred together. It wasn't singing. It wasn't crying. Just talking. Softly. Repeating. Like a loop with no beginning. I told myself it had to be the monitor feeding back, maybe a delay or signal distortion. I went back and stared at it again. The room was silent. The screen was grainy, flickering a little, but the boy never moved. His back was still to the camera, still breathing, still turned away. I stepped closer to the hallway again. The voice was clearer now. Not louder, just clearer. And it wasn't coming from the room with the camera. It was coming from behind the door with no handle. The door I wasn't supposed to touch. I knelt, pressing one ear close to the wood. The voice suddenly cut off. No fade. No footsteps. No creak. Just silence. And then something else happened. Not a sound, a feeling. I felt watched. Not just in the abstract. Not paranoia. Not tension. Watched directly. Closely. Like something on the other side of the wall had stopped speaking just to listen back. My chest tightened. I stood and backed away fast. I didn't want to be near that door anymore. I grabbed the printed list from the counter, scanning it again as if maybe something had changed. Maybe there was an answer I'd missed the first time. Don't trust the parents. That line stared back at me harder than the rest. That was when I realized something I should have noticed hours earlier. There were no family photos. Not in the living room. Not by the stairs. Not even a school drawing or a scribbled calendar or a phone charger lying around. Everything in the house felt prepared. Like it's staged. Like a set built for one night only. I walked the perimeter of the living room again, scanning every corner. Everything was so clean. Couch had never been used. The remote had no battery. Kitchen sink was dry and spotless. The fridge, when I cracked it open, was completely empty. Not a single item inside. Not even shelves. Just a hollow white box. I shut it and backed away. Something was wrong. I didn't hear anything. No footsteps. No creak. But something made me turn, a pull quiet and sharp. My eyes locked onto the monitor. Julian wasn't lying down anymore. He was sitting upright, perfectly still, staring straight into the camera, not blinking, not breathing, just watching. But it didn't feel like he was looking at the lens. Felt like he was looking through it, through the screen, at me. My throat tightened. The room felt smaller. And for the first time that night, I realized I wasn't watching him. He was watching me. It wasn't just that he was awake. It was the way he stared, like he'd been waiting for me to look. Like he somehow knew the exact moment I was watching. Then the screen glitched. Just a flicker of static. 1 second. Maybe less. But when it cleared, he was lying down again. Same position as before. Face turned to the wall. Completely still. Like nothing had happened. I stood in place, trying to calm my breathing, trying to reason. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe he turned and laid back down quickly. Maybe it was just lag or interference or some visual glitch I caught at the wrong moment. But deep down, I knew I hadn't imagined the way he stared. I backed away from the monitor. I was done. Whatever this was, whatever kind of job this had turned into, I didn't care anymore. I wasn't paid enough to be scared in someone else's house. I reached for my bag, threw it over my shoulder, and turned to the door. That's when I saw it. Piece of paper. Folded once. Lying right in front of the door like it had been slipped under from outside. But I hadn't heard anything. No footsteps. No knock. Not even the rustle of paper dragging against the floor. It hadn't been there before. I hesitated, then bent down and picked it up. My fingers trembled slightly as I unfolded it. Same messy handwriting as the last line on the rules list. One sentence. He's not their son. I read it again. Then again. And the third time, the letters blurred. My body felt hollow, like the fear had scooped something out of me. I didn't understand what it meant, but it hit something primal inside me. Something that whispered, "You shouldn't be here." I gripped the doorknob. I was leaving. I turned it, pushed the door open fast, my body tense and ready to run. But instead of the cold rush of night air or the safety of headlights waiting in the drive, I was met with silence. The driveway was empty. No car. No tracks. No puddle from earlier tires. Just the same perfect concrete and clean street beyond. The neighborhood was dark. Every house. Every window. Every lawn. No porch lights. No sound of TV from inside. No kids sneaking late snacks or dogs barking at shadows. Nothing. The whole street felt like a photograph. A still image. Like it was never meant to be real, just backdrop. I took one step onto the porch, then another. The air outside was warmer than inside the house, but it didn't feel comforting. Felt too still. Like the atmosphere itself was holding its breath. Behind me, the porch light snapped off. I spun. The front door had shut, but it had closed behind me without a sound. I stepped forward and grabbed the handle again. It was still unlocked. I could walk away. Just leave. But I didn't move. Not yet. I stood there, fingers still on the doorknob, staring down at the paper in my hand. He's not their son. So who was he? I looked up and scanned the other houses. No movement. No shadows crossing behind curtains. Just dark rectangles and closed blinds. The silence pressed against me like a wall. I stepped down onto the path and turned in a full circle, scanning everything. Every tree, every window, every roof. Looking for a sign that something, anything, was normal. But the street had that same artificial stillness. The parents. The house. The boy. The rules. The door with no handle. And now this note. He's not their son. The words stuck to my thoughts like glue. Not their son. Not that he didn't exist. Just that he didn't belong to them. I glanced back at the door. Part of me still wanted to walk away, get in my car, and never think about this night again. But a smaller part, the one that wouldn't let go of that strange feeling, told me I couldn't. Because if he wasn't their son, then someone else was missing him. And maybe, just maybe, he was waiting for someone to notice. I didn't go home that night. Not really. My car drove itself more or less. I followed the turns, hit the green lights, parked in my usual spot. But my body was the only part of me that arrived. The rest of me was still on that porch, still holding that note, still hearing the way the silence swallowed sound in that neighborhood. Inside my apartment, I didn't turn on any lights. I shut the door quietly, locked it twice, drew the curtains, and stood still in the dark. It wasn't the same kind of dark. Not like that house. My walls didn't hum with pressure. The shadows didn't watch me here. But even so, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed me back. Not physically, but something had attached itself to my thoughts. Something I couldn't name. I sat on the edge of my bed and pulled the note from my pocket. He's not their son. I read it again, as if the paper might change its mind. It didn't. The edges were soft from being held too long. My thumb had smudged the ink. That line looped in my head, quiet but persistent. I opened my laptop. I didn't have a plan. I didn't even have a full name. Just Julian. Fake name, most likely. But I remembered the parents' last name. They'd left it on the rules list. I typed it into a search bar, followed by the name of the town. I expected to find nothing. Maybe a tax record. A business listing. Maybe some PDA meeting minutes if I got lucky. But the first result was a local news article. 4 years old. The photo made my chest lock up. A little boy. Same pale skin. Same dark eyes. Almost the same face. But the name underneath wasn't Julian. Missing Elias Markham, age 7. Last seen wearing blue pajamas. Last seen by his parents late at night. No signs of forced entry. No suspects. No witnesses. I stared at it. Reread it. Checked the date. If Elias were alive, he'd be 11 now. The boy I watched sleep, the one I saw stare into the monitor, couldn't have been older than 5. Didn't make sense. Unless it wasn't the same boy. Or unless it was. I opened more tabs. Dug deeper. Cross-referenced the town and the county. More local cases. Old message boards. Forgotten blog posts. I found 3 more missing children, all under the age of 8, all vanished within 6 years of each other, all from neighborhoods that looked eerily similar. Clean. Suburban. One detail stood out in all of them: no signs of forced entry. No witnesses. All taken from their beds. The screen glared into my eyes. My hands had started to sweat. Then I found the thread. It wasn't on any news site. Not even on the surface web. A screen cap, saved in some forgotten corner of a forum that hadn't been updated in years. The original post was gone. The thread was locked. But someone had saved a screenshot. It was a babysitter. Her post described the exact same house. The same rules. Same silence. Same child. Same note. Don't trust the parents. She'd left after one night too. No one had heard from her since. I sat back, heart pounding. My room felt suddenly smaller, like the walls had pulled closer while I read. The shadows in the corners were thicker now. I told myself I was just connecting dots that didn't exist. That I was spiraling. That my brain had latched onto a coincidence and wrapped it in horror. But deep down I knew. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't just a creepy house. There was a reason the boys' room was padded. A reason the door had no knob. A reason I was told not to enter it. And a reason that note had shown up, written in the same hand, maybe by the same girl who'd vanished years ago. I hadn't spoken a word since I got home, but my thoughts hadn't stopped screaming. By morning, I'd made a decision. I had to go back. Not because I wanted to, because I had to know. I told myself I was going back just to prove it was all in my head. That I'd forgotten something. Charger. A bracelet. Some flimsy excuse I rehearsed in the car just to keep myself from turning around. But by the time I reached the neighborhood, I wasn't pretending anymore. I needed to see it again. I needed answers. The street was even quieter than before. No porch lights. No cars. No wind. The houses looked more artificial in the daylight, like shells or stage props, waiting to be seen from a distance but never meant to be touched. The house was the same. Flawless. Till. Waiting. I rang the bell once. No answer. I rang again. Nothing. Then I heard it. A voice, faint, childlike, drifting up from somewhere deep inside the house. Not crying. Not laughing. Just speaking. Low and even like a lullaby spoken under breath. And it was repeating. I tried the door. It wasn't locked. Click of the latch was almost too loud in the silence. I stepped inside. The air was colder than before. Damp and still. Nothing had changed, not at first glance. The living room was pristine. The furniture untouched. The frames on the wall perfectly aligned. But the hallway was different. The door with no handle was gone. In its place, an open frame. A narrow stairwell leading downward. Concrete walls. No light switch. Just a basement. I stood at the top for a long moment, heart hammering against my ribs, listening for movement. Nothing. Except that voice. Till talking below. Till repeating. I descended slowly. The stairs groaned faintly beneath my weight. One at a time. Hand on the wall. Breath shallow. The basement was sterile. No dust. No cobwebs. Just shelves lined with labeled bins, each one stacked neatly. Kids' clothes hung from a rack along the far wall, all too small, all neatly folded or pressed. Their colors faded like they'd been sitting here for years. In the center of the room sat a single metal table, covered in folders. Each folder had a name. A birth date. Notes. All handwritten. Observations. Behaviors. Times and dates. All of them children. I didn't open them. I didn't need to. There was a television in the corner, a bulky old set strapped to a rolling cart. A VCR sat beneath it, humming quietly. A tape was already loaded. I didn't press play. I couldn't. But then I noticed something else. Tucked on a low shelf, almost hidden behind a stack of boxes, a small black and white monitor. It was on. It's a live feed. Me. The angle was from above, a grainy overhead shot of the basement, delayed by maybe a second. My movements played back in near real time. That's when I realized. I wasn't alone. Behind me, a floorboard creaked. One slow step. Then another. Deliberate. Measured. I turned, but saw nothing. Just the open stairs above. I held still, waiting. Listening. My ears strained so hard they ached. And then the voice, the one I'd followed in, went silent. Not faded. Just stopped. Kind of silence that swallows everything. I started backing toward the stairs, hand outstretched, eyes locked on the darkness above. But before I could move again, something shifted in the air behind me. Not sound. Not movement. Just a feeling. I turned and saw the basement wall across from me, the one lined with shelves, slowly shift inward, revealing a hidden passage. Narrow. Unlit. Cold air rolled out from it like breath. And there, just beyond the threshold, a figure, small and still. Its eyes were wide and unblinking, too wide, too empty. It didn't move. It didn't breathe. Just stared, hollow and wrong, like it had never been human at all. It looked like the boy, but something was wrong. Like a copy that had been made too many times. Too still. Too smooth. Too empty. It didn't blink. It didn't breathe. Just watched. And I couldn't move.
Some houses keep their secrets buried deep. others leave a note. If this story kept you watching, you're welcome to come back to the fire next time. I'll be here, waiting for you.